And I have another campaign from our India team. And I want to preface this with just think about media consumption and media penetration in India, and that'll help you kind of see how this campaign really used data in a creative way. So I'm going to talk about how Castrol targeted mini truck drivers in India. And these are trucks. So on the left side, you have what we would consider a standard truck. And then on the right side, you have the mini trucks. And typically, all of these trucks would use the same motor oil. But they actually have different needs. So if we think of big trucks on the left side, they're mostly driving in rural areas, on highways at a constant pace. Where on the right, the mini trucks are mostly for cities where there's a lot of traffic, a lot of stop and start, bad road conditions, and it puts a lot of stress on the engine. And so the engines often overheat on mini trucks. So to combat this, Castrol launched a mini truck oil that was specifically made for these kind of trucks. And it provided superior protection specifically against overheating. And our main challenge was, Our main challenge was how do we reach these mini truck drivers? Because you can't just go out and buy a data segment just for mini truck drivers. And so what we did is Castrol commissioned some research. Castrol commissioned a study to learn more about these drivers, and they followed these people throughout the day, and they asked them questions about what they do, what their media consumption is, where they go, how often they pick up different loads, and we saw that the average work shift was from 11 a.m. to 8 p.m. We saw that mini truck drivers actually visited their van stands where they pick up their load at least 3 times a day, and they had a lot of run-ins with the police. They were often harassed by the police. They're not very well off. And when we saw all of this uncertainty in their life, one thing that was pretty constant was their use of mobile. So like we know, this is a huge third wave issue, but mobile is used to find work, it's used on breaks for entertainment, and it's used to connect to friends and family. But when we talk about phone usage in India, this is not smartphones, this is all feature phones. And these are people that don't use data, they don't use SMS, it's voice only. And so when we were putting together a campaign, we knew that it had to be mobile driven. And when we looked at other media channels, there was just too much spill and we'd reach too many people and waste money on people that weren't mini truck drivers. So keeping that mini truck driver behavior in mind, our campaign we knew had to be mobile first. And this is the audio mobile. And then we also wanted to use mini truck drivers as influencers, knowing that they hang out at their van stands on their breaks. So that's the two-pronged approach for our campaign. But since you can't just ask for this data segment of mini truck drivers, we wanted to identify places that we knew mini truck drivers, we could find them. And so what we did is we mapped out these areas. So we studied where mini truck drivers reside. We identified 700 van stands across different cities. We looked at the cell towers that were nearby and geo-mapped out those locations within 500 meters. And then we added in the mini truck driver behavior. So people that enter at least 3 times a day, only on feature phones, low SMS and high voice usage, and no data. So because this is like the crux of our campaign, we identified 2.1 million drivers. But I want to go over again just how we found these people. So we mapped out 700 different van stands across 10 different cities. We picked each of the cell towers that were nearby, and this let us map out how people moved in and out of those areas. And then what we did is we delimited the mini truck driver behavior. So people had to enter that area at least 3 times a day to be classified as a driver. They had to be on feature phone only. They had to have low or no SMS usage, only phone calls, and then no mobile data usage. So this let us identify 2.1 million people that met that criteria. Make sense? What we then did was identify our communication. So in India, if you want to place a call on your phone, you use an outbound dialer, which is like an operator. And so you call, and then they route that call through. And so what we said is we would have Castrol give people the opportunity of these 2.1 million people to listen to a Castrol message in exchange for free airtime. And then, so we had 7 interactive voice messages that really talked about the stop and start and overload heating issues. And so they'd have phrases like cool engine, cooler head, and I'll play one in a second. And then the second part of the campaign we had was the contest. So you could refer 2 other mini truck drivers and receive a discount of 20 rupees.
मैं आपका इंजन बोल रहा हूँ, मैं आ रिया हूँ कि जा रिया हूँ, रिवर्स में भी घुमा रिया हूँ, मैं पूरी चक्कर लगा रिया हूँ और गोल पहिया घुमा रिया हूँ। कैस्ट्रॉल प्लीज।
क्योंकि सिर्फ कैस्ट्रॉल CRB मिनी ट्रक का हीट शील्ड बूस्टर ही आपके इंजन को गर्म होने से बचाता है। कैस्ट्रॉल की दोस्ती कॉन्टेस्ट में भाग लेने के लिए एक दबाएं और पाएं आकर्षक इनाम।
So you'd listen to that message, then your call would be free.
धन्यवाद। हम 48 घंटे
and then you could nominate 2 other people to get your discount. So from the contest side, the results we saw were really strong. So more than 85% of the drivers were reached in those 10 cities. So we reached 1.8 million people out of the 2.1 million that we identified. Just on the referral program alone, we had over 140,000 people referred. Over half of the consumers engaged with the entire brand communication, so all 7 messages. And the average time with Castrol was 2 minutes. On the brand study and sales side, we saw even better performance. So we had an increase in 250% increase in familiarity. Of people that bought the big truck oil, 74% of them knew about the mini truck oil, which was huge for a brand new oil in a new market. We doubled market share year on year, and sales increased 40% year on year in this time. That's it.
Right on time. Thank you. Thank you very much, Howard. So we have a 2-minute questions session. Yes, at the back.
I was just curious how you were able to get all the location data for the feature phones.
Yeah. So we partnered with Airtel. It's a cell provider, and they gave us all of the data on who's coming in and out of range of their cell towers.
So, great example. Are there any other campaigns that you're planning in India with the power of Airtel telecom data? And secondly, also, did you measure the effect on word of mouth because of the personalization?
So for the first part, we've actually talked a lot about how this translates, and we actually think it could translate to kind of any developing market that's heavy feature phone usage, so whether that's Africa, Middle East, or India, and it could go the other way of any other of our accounts that do that as well. For word of mouth, it wasn't specifically tracked out, but we used the referral program as an indication of how it would share.
One more.
Thanks. 40% year-on-year sales growth. I guess the question is that solely down to this initiative, or was there other campaigns going on? I seem to remember there was some radio that went with this campaign, but maybe I'm thinking of something else. Was there anything else going on as well?
There were other things that were part of this campaign, but this is really where we targeted just mini truck drivers. The rest of it was kind of general targeting.
Great.